It was a busy afternoon at the airport. People were running, standing in long lines, and waiting for their flights. Among the crowd, a man slowly walked to the gate. He was wearing a simple black suit. His shoes were clean but old. He had no gold watch, no sunglasses, and no expensive phone. Just a small leather bag in his hand. His name was Mr. Kabir. He looked like a normal man. Quiet, calm, polite. No one knew who he was. No one looked twice. But inside that simple man was a story no one expected. Kabir walked to the gate and smiled at the lady standing near the entrance. "Good afternoon, ma'am," he said kindly, handing her his ticket. She scanned it. Her smile quickly disappeared. Please wait here for a second, sir," she said. She whispered something to another flight attendant. The second lady looked at Kabir, then at the ticket, and then back at him. They both looked nervous. After a minute, the first lady returned. "Sir," she said, trying to sound polite, "we're very sorry, but there's a small issue with your seat." Kabir raised his eyebrows but stayed calm. "What kind of issue?" "It looks like your seat has been reassigned. We'll need you to move to an economy seat." Kabir looked at his ticket again. It clearly said, VIP, seat 1A. "I booked this ticket months ago," he said softly. "Why the change?" The woman hesitated. "We apologize, sir. It's just, someone else needs that seat." Right then, a tall man in sunglasses and a white shirt walked past them. He didn't say hello. He didn't smile. The two flight attendants quickly moved aside and welcomed him. "This way, sir," they said. "Seat 1A, right here." Kabir quietly watched as the man sat in the seat that was supposed to be his. He didn't argue. He didn't fight. He simply nodded, picked up his bag, and walked toward the back of the plane. In economy class, he sat by the window. The seat was small. The space was tight. But Kabir didn't complain. A young flight attendant, Sarah, had seen everything. She was standing nearby when the whole thing happened. She looked confused. Something about the man didn't seem ordinary. His calmness, his respect, his quiet smile. She leaned toward another attendant. "Who is that man?" she whispered. "No idea. Just another businessman," the other replied. Sarah couldn't stop thinking about it. Why would a businessman who booked VIP months ago just quietly move to the back without saying a word? Nearby, a small girl tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mom, look," she whispered, pointing at Kabir. "Isn't that the man from the video?" Her mother looked carefully. Her eyes went wide. "I think you're right," she said, surprised. "That's him." Sarah heard them. She quickly pulled out her phone and typed his name. Kabir Khan. In seconds, the screen filled with results. CEO of a tech company. Billionaire. Motivational speaker. Known for kindness and simple lifestyle. Sarah looked up in shock. This man, this quiet man, was not just a regular passenger. He was the owner of one of the fastest-growing companies in the country. He was the one who donated millions to hospitals during COVID. He was the one who built schools in poor villages. And today, he was sitting quietly in economy class because no one recognized him or cared to ask. At the front of the plane, the white passenger sat in 1A, drinking juice and talking loudly on his phone. He didn't even know whose seat he was sitting in. He didn't care. Back in economy, Kabir looked out the window, watching the clouds. His face was peaceful. He didn't want revenge. He didn't want drama. He just wanted to reach his destination. But fate had other plans, because someone had just recognized him. And the truth was about to come out. The plane was now in the air. Seat belts were fastened. The engine hummed softly as clouds passed by the windows. But something had changed in the cabin. A few people in the economy section were whispering, looking over their seats, not at the loud man in VIP, but at the quiet one in the back. Kabir Khan, the man sitting by the window, wearing an old black suit and a soft smile. "Are you sure that's him?" One passenger whispered to her husband. "I saw him in a video last year," said the husband. "He gave a speech in a village school. Same face, same calm voice." A small group of passengers had started noticing him. They remembered stories from the news. One man said, "He saved hundreds of workers from being fired during COVID, paid them from his own pocket." Another added, "Didn't he refuse a government award once?" Said the real heroes were doctors and teachers. But the man himself stayed quiet. He looked out the window, as if nothing was happening. In the front, the white passenger in 1A called the flight attendant rudely. "Excuse me, where's my drink? I asked for sparkling water, not still water." The hostess smiled nervously and apologized. She looked tired. Sarah, the young flight attendant, stood near the economy section. Her heart was beating fast. She now knew who Kabir really was. She had read about him, watched videos, even cried during one of his interviews. He was more than a CEO. He was a man of the people. Kind, honest, powerful, but never proud. And now he was sitting in economy because no one took time to see beyond his simple clothes. Sarah walked to him slowly, nervous but respectful. "Sir," she said softly, "would you like something to drink? Coffee? Tea?" Kabir smiled gently. "Water would be fine. Thank you." She nodded, then paused. "Sir, I just wanted to say, I know who you are, and I'm really sorry about what happened." Kabir looked at her kindly. "No need to say sorry. People don't always recognize the right faces. It's okay." His words were soft, but they touched her heart. She brought him water and added a small chocolate from her own bag. "For you," she said with a smile. "Not from the airline, just from me." Kabir smiled again. "Thank you. That means a lot." Meanwhile, more whispers spread quietly through the plane. One man took out his phone and searched. Kabir Khan, net worth. Another searched. Kabir Khan donations. The results shocked them. Why would a billionaire travel alone? No assistant, no bodyguard, no first-class drama. Someone asked. "Because he's not like the others," someone else answered. "That's why." A young college student nearby opened his laptop. He played a short clip of Kabir speaking at a conference. "Success is not about cars or big houses." Kabir's voice echoed softly from the laptop. "It's about how many lives you lift with you on your journey." More and more passengers started watching. Some began to feel embarrassed. Earlier, they had seen him pushed aside and didn't say anything. Some had even smiled when he was sent to the back. Now, they were ashamed. And at the front, the man in seat 1A was shouting again. "Why is this seat so small? I paid for VIP." Sarah looked at him, then looked back at Kabir. The difference between them was as clear as sunlight. The rude man had paid for a VIP seat, but had no class. Kabir had lost his seat, but earned the respect of a full cabin. Sarah walked to the cockpit quietly and knocked. The captain opened the door. "Yes, sir, I think you should know something," she said. "We have a very special passenger on board." She showed him her phone. The captain read it, and his eyes widened. "Are you sure this is him?" "Yes," she nodded. "It's Kabir Khan." The captain nodded slowly. "This changes everything," he said. Back in the cabin, Kabir was helping an old lady with her blanket. She thanked him with tears in her eyes. A small child smiled at him and said, "You're the man from the kindness video, right?" He nodded. "Maybe," he said softly. The flight was still 2 hours away from landing. But inside that plane, a storm was already brewing. The truth had started spreading. And soon, everyone would know what kind of mistake had been made. The plane flew smoothly above the clouds, but inside the cabin, hearts were beginning to stir. Everyone now knew the truth. The quiet man in economy wasn't just another traveler. He was Kabir Khan, the famous CEO known across the country for his heart, his humility, and his journey from poverty to power. Some passengers couldn't stop whispering his name. Others searched him on their phones, but none of them knew the full story. Not yet. A flashback begins. Years ago, in a small village with dusty roads and no streetlights, a boy named Kabir helped his mother sell tea near the bus stop. He was only 10. Every morning before school, he carried a tray with cups of tea. Every evening after school, he washed the cups, swept the small stall, and counted the coins. Life was hard. Money was little. But Kabir never complained. He was always smiling. The boy who loved to read. Kabir had one dream: to study. He didn't have a phone. He didn't even have a fan in his room. But he had one old book that he read again and again. Stories of great leaders. At night, while others slept, he sat under a streetlight with his book. His eyes would shine with hope. He believed that one day he could do something big. Not for himself, but for his mother, for his village, for people like him who were always ignored. His first job. At 18, Kabir moved to the city. He had only Rs 200 in his pocket. No contacts. No fancy degree. He worked as a cleaner in a computer office. Every night after everyone left, he cleaned the floors, desks, and toilets. But he also looked at the computers. He had never touched one before. One night, he asked a kind security guard, "Can I try to use the computer for a few minutes?" The guard smiled. "Go ahead, Beta. Just don't break it." And that night, Kabir touched a keyboard for the first time. That was the start. Learning without a teacher. Every night, after his cleaning shift, Kabir sat at the computer. He searched how to code. He didn't understand the English well, but he kept learning. He watched free videos. He read free blogs. And in 2 years, he built his first app, a small tool that helped shopkeepers manage their sales. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. And someone noticed. The first break. A small business owner came to the office one day and saw Kabir helping someone with the printer. He asked, "You work here?" Kabir said, "I clean here, but I also make apps." The man laughed, until Kabir showed him his work. 2 weeks later, that man gave Kabir Rs 20,000 to build an app for his company. That money changed everything. Kabir left the cleaning job. He started his own company from a shared hostel room. He worked day and night. He ate simple food. He slept on the floor. But he never stopped building. From nothing to millions. In 5 years, Kabir's company was everywhere. He created apps that helped farmers track weather. He made websites for small businesses. He trained poor kids in coding for free. Investors offered him crores. Media channels wanted his story. But Kabir always stayed simple. He still traveled by train. He still wore normal clothes. And when he was offered a Rs 2 crore car as a gift, he gave it to an orphanage for their school bus. The heart of a leader. Kabir's success wasn't in his money. It was in his actions. He paid hospital bills for strangers. He built schools in areas where kids walked 10 kilometers to study. He gave jobs to people who had no degrees but big dreams, just like him. The world called him a CEO, but people call him Bhaiya, Big Brother. And now, that same Kabir was sitting in economy class, quietly, while a rude man shouted in VIP, "Back to the plane." Passengers who once ignored him were now looking at him with new eyes. They whispered, "He changed so many lives, and we didn't even say hello." One man walked up to Kabir and said softly, "Sir, I'm sorry we didn't treat you right." Kabir smiled. "You don't need to say sorry, you just need to treat the next person better." Sarah, the flight attendant, was still shaken. She thought, how can someone be so powerful, yet so humble? She knew the flight was only halfway done. But something big was about to happen, because the captain had now recognized Kabir too. And soon, The whole plane would witness a moment they would never forget. The plane continued its journey through the sky. Outside, it was calm. But inside the hearts of many passengers, a quiet storm was rising. Sarah, the young flight attendant, stood near the back of the plane. Her hands were holding the service tray, but her mind was far away. She couldn't stop thinking about Kabir Khan, the man who had been pushed out of his VIP seat and sent to the back, the man who hadn't said a single rude word, the man who smiled even when treated unfairly. She felt a tightness in her chest. She had seen rude passengers, rich passengers, arrogant businessmen. But Kabir was different. He didn't act rich. He acted real. Questions in her heart. Sarah walked toward the small crew area and placed the tray on the shelf. Her colleague, Nina, noticed her silence. "You okay?" Nina asked. Sarah shook her head. "No, I'm not." Nina raised her eyebrows. "What's wrong?" Sarah looked around to make sure no one was listening. Then she whispered, "That man in economy, the one they moved from VIP. Yeah, that's Kabir Khan." Nina laughed. "The CEO? No way." Sarah showed her the photo on her phone. Same face, same calm eyes. Nina's smile faded. "Oh my God." Sarah nodded. "We made a mistake. A big one. A quiet regret." Sarah leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. "I saw how that head attendant treated him," she said. "Like he was nothing, just because he didn't look rich." Nina stayed quiet. "And that other guy," Sarah added, "he just walked in and took the seat like it was made for him." "We should do something," Nina whispered. But Sarah shook her head. "It's too late now," she said. "The damage is done." A silent hero. Sarah looked toward Kabir's seat. He was helping a little boy with his dropped toy. Smiling. Soft-spoken. As if he wasn't a millionaire. As if he hadn't just been insulted. A woman sitting nearby leaned toward Sarah. "He's a good man," she said quietly. "I followed his story for years. He once paid for my niece's surgery. Never even told anyone." Sarah's eyes widened. Another man added, "He came to our town after a flood. No cameras, no speeches. Just came, helped, and left." Every person had a story. Every story was about kindness. A private message. Sarah walked toward the cockpit. She knocked gently. The co-pilot opened the door. "I need to speak to the captain," she said. The captain turned in his seat. "Yes." Sarah stepped closer. "Sir, there's a passenger in economy. Seat 21A. "Yes." "His name is Kabir Khan. He's the CEO of Cantek. You may know him." The captain blinked, then nodded slowly. "I met him once," he said, "at a charity event. Very humble man. What's he doing in economy?" "He was moved there," Sarah said softly. "His VIP seat was given to someone else." The captain frowned. "Who made that call?" Sarah looked down. "Head attendant." The captain sighed deeply. "This is serious." He picked up the phone. "Decision at 30,000 feet." The captain called the head flight attendant to the cockpit. She walked in confidently, but her face changed as she heard the news. "That man," she said. "He didn't say anything." "That's the point," the captain replied. "He didn't need to." The head attendant felt her legs go weak. She had judged him by his clothes. His seat was removed without explanation. And now, she had made a fool of herself in front of someone the world respected. Meanwhile, in economy, back in seat 21A, Kabir was still peaceful. He pulled out a notebook from his bag and started writing. Not business notes, but a letter to a child in a village school. He had promised to send her a message of hope. "Dear Anaya," he wrote, "never let someone's words decide your worth. Even if they push you down, rise with a smile. That's your true power." A small tear rolled down his cheek. He quickly wiped it. But Sarah saw it. She knew this man didn't need a VIP seat to feel important. He already was important, in a way that no seat number could define. A shift is coming. The captain came on the speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, we are halfway through our flight. Please remain seated. And remember, kindness always flies higher than pride. No one understood the meaning. But Kabir looked up and smiled. He understood. Because soon, something would happen on this flight that no one expected. And the ones who once looked down on him would look up to him with respect in their eyes. The plane flew on, high above the clouds, but the mood inside was changing. People in economy whispered, some with guilt in their voices, some with wonder in their eyes. They looked again at the man sitting quietly near the window, still in economy class, still calm. Kabir Khan, the CEO who could buy the whole airline, but didn't even raise his voice when his seat was taken. A mistake echoes. At the front of the plane, the white passenger in seat 1A was now snoring loudly, a blanket over his chest, completely unaware of what was happening behind him. Meanwhile, the flight crew was slowly realizing the weight of their mistake. The head flight attendant, Miss Preeti, stood frozen outside the cockpit. She kept replaying everything in her mind. How she had smiled at the loud man, how she had told Kabir to step aside, how she had looked down at his simple suit. She didn't know he was a billionaire. She didn't know he was loved by millions. All she saw was a man who didn't look important. And now she was filled with regret. Sarah takes a step. Sarah, the young flight attendant, decided she couldn't stay silent anymore. She walked up to Miss Preeti. "Ma'am," she said softly, "I think we should do something." Preeti stayed quiet. "I mean, we can't change the past, but maybe we can fix this moment." Preeti frowned. "What do you suggest?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Apologize. In front of everyone." Preeti looked shocked. "In front of the passengers?" Sarah nodded. "Yes, he didn't need a seat to show his worth, but we need to show we learned something." A surprise announcement. The captain agreed. 5 minutes later, the speaker beeped. "Ladies and gentlemen," came a voice, "this is your captain speaking. Today we have someone very special on board. Many of you may have heard of him. Some of you may not, but he is a man who has quietly changed lives across the country." Passengers leaned forward. Heads turned. "His name is Kabir Khan," the captain continued. "Founder of Cantech, known for his social work and respected for his humility. Due to a mix-up earlier, Mr. Kabir is currently seated in economy." People gasped. On behalf of the crew and airline, the captain said, "We sincerely apologize to Mr. Kabir for the treatment he received, and we thank him for showing us what true class looks like." There was silence. And then, applause. Clapping filled the cabin. People turned to Kabir. Some had tears in their eyes. Even those who hadn't recognized him now stood and clapped, ashamed of their earlier silence. Kabir speaks, gently. The head attendant, Preeti, walked up to Kabir. She knelt beside his seat. "Sir," she said softly, voice shaking, "I'm sorry. I didn't know who you were. I judged you." Kabir looked at her with kind eyes. "You judged what I wore," he said gently, "not who I was. It's okay. People do that." She looked down. "You have every right to be angry." Kabir shook his head. "No, I have a choice, and I choose peace." His words were soft, but powerful. Sarah stood behind them, her heart full. This man had been insulted, ignored, humiliated, but he stayed calm. Not because he was weak, but because he was strong enough not to fight for respect. A gesture of respect. The captain himself came down to meet Kabir. He offered him the first-class seat again. Kabir politely refused. "Thank you," he said, "but I'm fine here. It's not where you sit, it's what you carry inside." The captain smiled. "I've flown presidents, ministers, celebrities," he said. "But you, sir, are the only passenger who taught me something today." Passengers nearby listened, and one by one, they walked up to Kabir. An old man shook his hand. A woman said, "Thank you for building a school in our district." A student asked for a photo. Kabir smiled at each one, humble as ever. He had come onto this flight as a stranger. Now he was leaving as a lesson. The power of calm. As the plane prepared to land, the once lauded VIP man in seat 1A looked confused by all the attention going to the back of the plane. He asked, "Who is that guy everyone's talking to?" The flight attendant simply said, "Someone more important than you'll ever understand." The man laughed awkwardly and looked away. He had no idea that he was sitting in a seat that once belonged to a man worth more than money. A man whose power didn't come from shouting, but from silence. A changed cabin. The flight landed. As Kabir stepped off the plane, passengers made way for him. Some clapped again. Some whispered thank you. And Sarah stood by the exit door, eyes filled with emotion. "Sir," she said softly, "you taught me more in one flight than I learned in a whole career." Kabir smiled. "Then it was a good flight," he replied. And he walked away. No bodyguards, no media. Just a man with a bag and a heart full of peace. The plane had landed. Passengers had gone their separate ways. But something strange was happening. In every corner of the airport, in buses, taxis, and cafes, phones were lighting up with the same video. It had no filters, no fancy editing, just a shaky clip from a phone. But within minutes, it was everywhere. The video that changed everything. The video was only 2 minutes long. It showed a man in a simple suit sitting in economy class. It showed the captain's announcement. It captured the applause. And it showed the quiet face of a man who had said nothing in anger, but had received everything in respect. The title of the video was, "This Man Was Kicked Out of VIP. What happened next will leave you speechless." People clicked. And they didn't stop watching. Social media explodes. By the time Kabir stepped into his small black car outside the airport, the video had been shared over 50,000 times. By nightfall, it crossed 3 million views. People were writing, "This is what real leadership looks like." He didn't say a word, but the world heard him. Lesson: you don't need a label to be valuable. It wasn't just in India. People in London, New York, and Dubai were sharing it. Everyone was moved by how Kabir had stayed calm, kind, and silent, yet had made the loudest impact. News channels pick it up. By the next morning, news anchors were saying, "The world is talking about the CEO who lost a seat, but won the world's respect." One anchor asked, "Why didn't he react with anger?" Another said, "Because people like Kabir Khan don't need to prove who they are." Kabir's photo was everywhere, on newspapers, Instagram stories, Twitter trends, and even WhatsApp family groups. Reactions from the top. At the Cantech office, employees gathered around screens. Some cried, "He's our boss," one said proudly. "But he's more than that. He's a role model." Investors and clients began calling. Journalists wanted interviews. Other CEOs sent messages saying, "You've reminded us what real leadership is." Kabir's silence. And where was Kabir? At home, in his small apartment, sitting beside his mother. He hadn't even opened the video. When his assistant called, excitedly telling him, "Sir, it's gone viral," Kabir simply replied, "I didn't do anything. I just stayed quiet." But his silence had spoken to millions. The man in VIP reacts. Meanwhile, the white man who had taken Kabir's VIP seat was getting a different kind of attention. Someone had posted a video of him yelling, demanding the VIP seat, saying, "I paid more than him." Now, people were tagging him, criticizing him, calling him arrogant and rude. He deleted his social media the next day. Because when the truth came out, the world didn't support the loud man in 1A. It supported the quiet man in 21A. The airline responds. The airline posted a public apology. "We are deeply sorry for the incident with Mr. Kabir Khan. We are reviewing our training to make sure no person is ever judged by appearance again." They even offered Kabir a free lifetime first-class pass. He said no. Instead, he asked them to give free air travel to 10 poor students every year. The airline agreed. A child watches. In a small village, a young girl named Anaya, the one Kabir had written to, watched the viral video on a neighbor's phone. She looked at his calm face on the screen. She smiled. "This is the man who wrote me a letter," she whispered. Then she said something softly to herself. "One day, I'll become like him. Strong, kind, and calm." The world remembers. Days passed, then weeks. But the video never faded, because people didn't just watch it. They felt it. It reminded them of something the world often forgets. Power doesn't need to shout. Respect doesn't wear labels. And the strongest people are the ones who stay calm when the world is unfair. Months had passed since the viral video. The world had moved on to other news, other headlines. But something beautiful was growing far away from cameras, likes, and social media. A school, in a quiet village, surrounded by trees, near a broken road, was getting ready to open its gates. Not just any school. This one had a name on the wall that brought tears to many eyes. The Kabir Khan School of Kindness. A dream begins. The school stood in Anaya's village. The same girl Kabir had written to during his flight. It had clean classrooms, computers, a library, and most importantly, hope. Hope for kids who had never even seen the inside of a school before. And it all began with a moment on a plane, when one man chose calm over anger. Kabir didn't build this school to get fame. He built it because he remembered what it felt like to be poor, ignored, and underestimated. Anaya steps forward. It was the first day of school. Dozens of children stood in clean uniforms, holding new books in their hands. Their eyes sparkled. Their futures were waiting. Kabir stood near the gate, smiling as the children entered. Anaya ran to him, carrying a small drawing she made. It showed a plane in the sky, and a man sitting near the window, smiling. She handed it to Kabir and said, "You didn't just change your seat that day. You changed my life." Kabir knelt down, looked into her eyes, and said, "Now it's your turn to change the world." A guest arrives. Suddenly, a fancy car stopped near the school gate. Out stepped a familiar face, Sarah, the young flight attendant. She had tears in her eyes. "Sir," she said, walking up to Kabir, "I saw the news about this school. I had to come." Kabir smiled. "I'm glad you did." Sarah looked around the school, the children, the joy. This is more powerful than anything I've seen in my life," she said. Kabir nodded. "This is what happens when you turn pain into purpose." A special lesson. That day, Kabir went into the classroom to speak to the students. He didn't bring notes or a speech. He just told them a story. The story of a man who wore a simple suit, a man who lost his seat, a man who said nothing, but gained everything. Then he said, "Never let the world decide your value. Be honest, be kind, and stay calm. When people push you down, don't fight with anger. Rise with grace." The children listened with open hearts. They didn't just hear his words, they felt them. One last video. Sarah took out her phone and recorded a short clip of Kabir speaking to the kids. She uploaded it with the caption, "He was kicked out of first class. Now he's building futures." This is what true power looks like. The video once again touched hearts. It didn't go viral like the first one. But this time, Kabir didn't need the world to watch. He already knew the value of quiet work. A life remembered. Years later, when Kabir Khan grew old, people would still talk about the flight. But more than that, they talked about what he did after. He didn't just forgive. He built. He didn't just teach. He lifted. And across the country, in villages and cities, children walked into schools built in his name. Schools that didn't care about clothes, money, or skin color. Only kindness, only courage, only character. Years had passed since Kabir Khan built the school. He had stayed away from the spotlight, continued helping in silence, and watched from a distance as thousands of children studied under his name. But one morning, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived at the doorstep of a national news channel. No name, no phone number, only 2 words written on the envelope. For Kabir. A letter from the past. The anchor opened it live on TV, thinking it was just another fan mail. But what she read made her stop mid-sentence. Her voice shook. It was not a fan letter. It was a confession. It was from the man who had taken Kabir's VIP seat years ago. The man from seat 1A. The confession. Here's what the letter said. Years ago, I humiliated a man in front of the world. I pushed him aside and took his seat, thinking I was more important. I was wrong. That man never raised his voice, but he raised millions through his kindness. His silence became louder than my pride. My life fell apart after that flight. I lost my business. I lost respect. But what haunted me most was that moment. And now, I want to say something I never had the courage to say. I'm sorry. If this letter reaches him, tell him I remember. Tell him I changed. Tell him he saved me without even knowing it. National reaction. The clip of the anchor reading the letter went viral. People were shocked. Was it really him? They asked. But Kabir? He simply smiled when someone showed him the video. He didn't need to reply. He had already answered, with kindness, long ago. A quiet visit. A few weeks later, Kabir quietly visited a small town. There, in a community center, a free clinic was running under a new name, the 1A Foundation. Kabir walked in, surprised. The walls were covered with photos of children the clinic had helped, orphans, poor families, the sick and forgotten. And standing at the reception desk was the same man from seat 1A, older now, softer, no expensive suit. He looked up and froze. Kabir smiled and stepped forward. The man said nothing, only folded his hands and bowed his head. Kabir placed a hand on his shoulder. Forgiveness is a gift, he said, and I'm ready to give it. The man's eyes filled with tears, because in that moment he knew. Real greatness doesn't remember hate. It remembers humanity. Legacy reborn. News spread quickly. The story of the man who gave up a seat and gained the world, and the man who once took it but gave back later, inspired millions. More foundations were started. More letters came in. More lives were changed, not by power, not by wealth, but by the power of one act of calm and one act of redemption. Children tell the story. At the Kabir Khan school, Anaya told her students the story again, but now with a new ending. She held the letter up and said, even the person who made a mistake came back to make things right. And that's the kind of world we should build, where people hurt less, help more, and grow together.